Good afternoon and welcome to From the Wings. I'm Stephanie Freed and I'm so glad that you're able to join us for today's episode. Today, we are going to explore another one of the gems of a theater here in Connecticut that are part of the Connecticut CTPACC, so the Connecticut Performing Arts Center Coalition that the Bushnell is a part of with the 5 other largest performing arts centers in the state. As I've shared before, from the very early days of the pandemic, our organization heads, our leaders came together, I think probably mostly to commiserate at first, but then to strategize how we were all going to move through this pandemic together and individually, and then what did we want to do coming out of it. I know that this partnership was incredibly beneficial for each of our CEOs, our executive directors, but also for the marketing teams and the rest of the organizations to know that we were in this together and we were going to continue working hard to bring back the live performing arts for folks in our state. Over the last couple of episodes, I've had the opportunity to introduce you to Steve Siegel from the Gard Arts Center, Rufus Duram from the Warner, and today we are going to continue the conversation with Michael Moran from the Palace Stamford. They are celebrating 95 years of bringing the arts to the people of Connecticut. So they're a little older than us here at the Bushnell, but a little younger than our friends at the Palace Waterbury. There's so much exciting stuff happening down there. I'm really looking forward to talking with Michael to learn more about that. Now, as we do with each episode of From the Wings, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor before we begin. I'd like to recognize Webster Bank, the official presenter of the From the Wings series. We are so grateful to Webster Bank for their loyal and generous support today and always. Thank you, Webster Bank. So before we begin our conversation, I wanted to share a video with you that's from before the closure, but I think does a really good job of reminding us of the impact and the influence of all of our organizations, our programs, and the arts in general. This was one of the most special nights I've experienced at the Bushnell. It was an evening with black violin featuring students from Greater Hartford. Let's roll tape.
What we're doing tonight is a concert with black violin. It's an opportunity that I never thought in a million years I would be able to have. Starting to play the cello in 4th grade, I never thought that in just 5 years' time I'd be playing on a stage in front of 2,000 people with such a famous group of people.
Black Violin is a band that mixes classical music with hip-hop music, and right now they're touring all around the world.
Yes, I'm a dreamer.
You don't get to perform this style in a school orchestra environment. It's really cool because they're like exposing classical music to like so many more people, and it's absolutely stunning. I've never seen anything like it.
Performing with Black Violin feels really inspiring.
They're like really genuine about their music, and they really care about it. They've been doing it for so long.
I have never been on this big of a stage before.
Walking onto a stage like this and seeing levels upon levels upon levels of seats, just being like, wow, this is happening. As soon as we started rehearsing and just hearing the drums and everything just come at me for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, and I got so into it and I was so excited and my heart just started to race, and just the adrenaline of it was so cool.
A lot of different emotions. It's like playing on a stage that a lot of famous people played on.
You feel like a superstar.
I saw the seat where I first saw the show in the Bushnell, and it's a really different perspective. It's really cool.
It was like magic. All my nervousness just disappeared, and I was like, I just need to enjoy this experience and savor it and take it all in, because the chances of a person getting to do this is so slim, and I'm 14 years old and it's crazy being here.
Give it up for your local Connecticut string students!
you so much, Hartford, for having us. We are Black Violin.
The composure of those students, the skill of those students, and those experiences, that's what it's about, right? We come together and we do new things. We grow in our skills and our ability to be together, one another, creating these beautiful things. I can't wait for Black Violin to come back to the Bushnell, and we get to experience that all over again. So let's get to today's conversation and talk about the great things that are happening down at the Palace Theater in Stamford. I am pleased to welcome President and CEO Michael Moran. Hi, how are you?
Good afternoon, Stephanie. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really, really well, and I am super excited to talk with you today and learn more and share more with our viewers about what's happening in Stamford and with the Palace specifically. As we get started, I'd love to hear your perspective, as we've had from the others I mentioned earlier, your perspective on the coalition. We jokingly call it the CT Six Pack, but our official name, the Connecticut Performing Arts Center Coalition. Tell me a little bit more about your engagement there.
Let me actually start with a compliment. That was an amazing video, incredibly inspirational. We had never presented Black Violin here in Stamford. Yesterday, I got the confirmation from the agent. They will be here on November 11th. So
Yes.
that was really inspirational. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm so glad. I didn't know that there's a nice little confluence there of things. That's wonderful.
The six pack, right?
Yeah.
CT pack. Just amazing group of individuals representing an amazing group of organizations. And when we closed in March, it was like being stranded on an island, March of 2020. We had shows scheduled the entire weekend. Everything got canceled. We were all, I think, very naive. It's like, oh, okay, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, it's going to pass. We're going to get back to it. And as things started to progress, we saw we were wrong. And so I believe I'm going to credit Rufus. Rufus at the Warner in Torrington reached out to the rest of us and said, guys, can we talk? What are we going to do? And we were all very anxious to hear what each organization was going to try to accomplish to move forward into uncertainty. And so we actually had weekly phone conversations, and I got as much, and I've been here for a little over 21 years. And I know that Mr. Fay has been there for a while. And I think I watched part of From the Wings with Steve. I think he's been at the Guard for over 30 years. And so there's a plethora of experience there. But I think I learned as much from Rufus and Anthony, who had just started at the Schubert, as they may have learned from me. And so it was a bit of a support group. It was a bit of an educational program. It was a bit of actually creating direction together so that we could find ways to complement each other. I think a lot of times people perceive these organizations to be competitors. And in fact, while we do maybe compete to present certain programs, we really complement each other. And so we work together to try to better the industry in the state because it's important. The arts and culture sector are incredibly important to the state. So I enjoyed the calls. I may have missed one in 2 years' time, and we still speak, I think, once a month right now. And we're all coming out of this, and we're all coming out of this, I think, at different levels between the COVID protocols and the number of performances that we're doing. But I've thoroughly enjoyed every one of these conversations with the coalition. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's an incredible group, and I think all the different roles it has played in moving us through the pandemic and now into the future, into the after times, as it were. I know I've been grateful for it, the participation I've had on the marketing level. But I agree with you. Perhaps we compete from time to time for booking, but we are complementary to one another. And Connecticut is so fortunate to have this wealth, I think, of, and not just us, right? Not just presenting organizations, but the number of producing organizations in the state. Connecticut is an arts-rich state, and it's been a gift to work more closely with each of you. So you mentioned coming out of the pandemic, coming out into, bringing audiences back. Tell us a little bit about the Palace Stamford, your programs and performances, and how you have come out of the pandemic.
So we're a little bit different from the Palace in Waterbury, yourself, and the Schubert. We tend to do more one-off performances rather than 2-3 week performances of touring Broadway shows. And I think that made it a little bit easier for us to get started sooner. June of last year was really, I think, month number 15 of the closure. And Shen Yun, the touring Chinese spectacular, was looking for a venue to sit down and do some performances. And we were available. We didn't have anything booked. And so we rented the building to them, and they came in June of 2021 and did 4 performances.
Wow.
And that kind of kickstarted us. And so we were then able to find some local artists that would come in and do some shows. We did the Connecticut Grateful Dead All-Stars came in and did a Grateful Dead tribute show. And then I started to book a lot of tribute acts for the fall, just to try to generate some consumer confidence and see if people would come back. We did have the band Chicago scheduled for September. So we started to ramp up very slowly, but we got open and back to normal operations, probably a little bit premature, but pretty quick. And then, of course, the fall came around and the variants were coming into the state and consumer confidence started to drop off a little bit again. And so our local towns, many of them put in mask mandates.
Right.
Broadway reopened and they had these COVID protocols that they had rolled out. And Broadway's iconic. We all looked to Broadway for inspiration at some point in time. And we all adopted COVID protocols, and it kind of slowed things down a little bit.
Sure.
And then, of course, as everyone knows, by mid-December, things were not going very well. So we kind of, it's fits and starts. So we kind of got started, and we thought that we were really getting out of the gate. Things were going to go back to pre-pandemic normal. That was not the case. So we're trying, the second inning right now, and we'll see what happens. We've had a lot of, we did 10 shows in March. And attendance has actually started. We dropped the COVID protocols on March 1st, and I know that many of you guys have. Actually, we accommodate the tours. If an artist or a touring show wants us to, adopt the protocol for their health and safety, we'll do it because ultimately, without them, we don't really have much to offer. But March picked up. We dropped the protocols March 1, and we did Blippi and Steve Martin and Martin Short, and both of those did very well. I did a couple of tribute acts that did better than I anticipated. And I think that the pent-up demand that people were talking about in June of last year is actually starting to come to fruition. And people really, it's been a couple of years now. They want to go out. They want to be safe, but they want to go out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we're seeing similar things here. And I know in a lot of the coverage I'm seeing of Broadway, we're seeing that happening there. The change in the policies, the change in the restrictions, and then just, moving out of winter. It's great. It's great to see people coming back. I love that you had 10 things in March. That's fantastic. When we think about the last 2 Marches, we weren't able to have 10 things.
That's right.
So That's wonderful. So do you, at the Palace Stamford, is it one theater? Are all of your productions in one space, or how does your space work, or your space is plural?
So all of that, the touring artists appear in the main auditorium, which is 1,600 plus seats. And that's where we do the majority of the profitable programming.
Okay.
We do some other things. I have a smaller space. In the upper lobby of the Palace, we've converted the space, and we've put in a stage with a small lighting kit, 24 units, and a little sound console and some JBL speakers. And we have a series of small things that we do up there that really haven't come back yet. But we had a stand-up comedy series that we call Laugh Tracks, and we would bring in Connecticut stand-up comedians to do shows in the space. On Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock in the wintertime, we have found that parents are looking for things to do with their young children. So we started a series called Playtime at the Palace. And it was not Disney, not high-end Disney things, but little touring things that might be magic or science related that the kids would kind of be in awe of when they saw. And so we would create a little kiddie mosh pit up by the stage and put chairs in the back for the parents. We're looking forward to getting back to that. And then we did a country music series called Music City Sessions, and I would try to find emerging artists, very hungry, very willing to work, emerging artists that would literally get into a Sprinter van, leave Nashville on a Thursday, do 3 shows somewhere in the Northeast, and then on Sunday night turn around and drive back. And that was fairly well received. I didn't realize that there was such a country audience in Fairfield County, but there is.
Yeah.
And so those things really haven't come back yet, but the touring shows are back, as you know, because you guys, you got, Hamilton and Waitress, and you just had Dear Evan Hansen. And so we've had Steve Martin and, Teresa Caputo is here tonight. Menopause the Musical is here tomorrow night. The Symphony is here this weekend. And then next week, Three Dog Night will be here, and the Be Underwater Bubble Show. And so, we're back. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I think we're back, and we'll return to where we all want to be, I hope, in short order.
Remind me which symphony plays in your space.
Symphony, and they applaud themselves as being, and I don't want to insult Hartford, but they say that they're the best symphony between New York and Boston. They're all union musicians. They all come up from New York on the train, and they spend the weekend here performing. They've gone through some transition in the past couple of years. They had a 29-year president and CEO that left a few years ago, and Russell Jones has replaced Barbara Soroka, and he is just a bundle of energy. He is going to make sure that everyone in this city knows about that symphony. They'll take quartets and go down to the local brewery, and he's just expanding the audience. He's doing a great job.
And he came to you all from the New York Philharmonic, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe he was in the development office now.
I think so, yeah. I've had the pleasure of meeting Russell, and actually he was in my email this morning. Okay. Another funny coincidence in our conversation.
He immersed himself in downtown Stamford. He got an apartment literally 1 block away from the Palace Theater. And he's not afraid. He's tireless. He just goes out and he's making sure that everyone knows just how important the symphony is here.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's a terrific asset for them, and I love what they're doing. So you've talked a little bit about some of the shows you have, from community to the national acts that are coming through, and you mentioned some of the things that are coming up. Are you seeing an increase in the volume of what's available to you to book, and if so, what are you most excited about bringing back as you move forward?
So I am very excited. I'm the president of the Consortium of Eastern Regional Theaters as well, and we just had a meeting in New Brunswick, New Jersey on Tuesday, and there's a general sense of, oh my God, let's block book some of these shows. You guys are getting whatever, Baby Shark, or you guys are getting, so let's go ahead and try to book some of these things. And so I think the opportunities are going to start to open up. For us, things like Earth, Wind, and Fire in Chicago and shows like that are kind of our cornerstone, our anchors, like Hamilton will be for you folks. Yeah. And these artists are back on the road and they're working. So, the 2-year hiatus is over, and each to an artist, when they take the stage here, they're all so grateful that there is an audience. They missed working their craft, and they're going to be willing to come out and do some shows for us, and we're really looking forward to it. I don't typically do a lot of summer programming,
Okay.
And I don't have a lot confirmed, but that we have an offer in for Tim Allen in August, and Tom Segura is going to be here Labor Day weekend. And so I want to be a little bit more proactive about putting some shows on in the summertime. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities outdoors between the concert series in a lot of towns and the Levitt Pavilion in Westport, and I'm sure Hartford has outdoor things that you folks do too. But I see a lot of opportunity coming up for all of us.
I think people just want to be together, right? Like have experiences together. I know that in our spaces, that's been like breathing energy back into the building, breathing energy back into our communities. And I think that's exciting to think about, what other programming can you do during the summertime? We too are typically quiet in the summer, not closed, but just quiet.
Right.
But this summer, there's actually quite a lot going on. Some we haven't announced yet. But it's exciting. It's exciting to see people come back. In doing my research, before this conversation, I see that the Palace Stamford has a really rich relationship, both with the people of your community and your surrounding communities, Fairfield County, but with the business community as well, both through sponsorship and then representation on your board of directors. And I'd love to know a little bit more about the way you collaborate with local business, local corporations.
So we aspire to be the Bushnell when we grow up, because you guys you're the gold standard when it comes to that. But yes, our corporate community has been very supportive of us through the years. And there's a transitional thing that happens here in Stamford. Corporations come, corporations go. So it's an ongoing task to try to find people that find the arts and culture sector valuable to their workforce, to their community. And it's as much a challenge sometimes as booking a show, but once we've got you, we've got you. I mean, Pitney Bowes, I think, was one of the founding partners of our company, and we were founded in 1980, and they're still at the board table, and they're very supportive of our education programs, and so we're pleased to be able to do that. And we don't really talk about that enough, do we? I mean, I know you folks do them, and we do them, and people drive by our organizations and look at these buildings and they say, "Oh, that's not a not-for-profit. Look at how that's great space." And but no, it's a task. It's an ongoing task. And one of the things that we were able to do was to boost our education programs, and corporations love that. They want to be able to, help with child's confidence and their willingness to try something new, or reading programs or directing programs or acting programs or dancing programs or vocal programs. And so we have found that's probably the easiest way for us to connect with the corporate community, because then they can feel good. It's not just about sponsoring a single show, getting 20 tickets for their employees, having one night and moving on. I think they really feel like they're giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm pretty pleased with the board in the sense that there's not a lot of transition on the board. Our board chair has actually been with the organization since 1993.
Wow.
And served as the chair since 2008. I'm sure he's not watching, so I can say this. There are days that we didn't always get along, but at the end of the day, he's been awesome for this organization.
Yeah.
And he's getting up there. He would like to retire, but the current board will not let him go. So we couldn't do it without them, as you know. The board, fundraising, governance, support. In every step that we take. So it's phenomenal.
That long-term commitment, whether it's commitment through giving or commitment through sponsorship or service, the service of our board members, I continue to be humbled by the way they commit. We have folks on our board, folks that serve on our board of ambassadors as well, who I think for some of them, they might have been here longer than I've been alive, and I've been alive a long time. Their commitment to the organization is unwavering. And when you talk about sponsorship and sponsoring your education program, sponsoring the Palace Stamford itself. It is, I think a lot of people think of it as squishy, right? Like it's, oh well, we feel good and it's entertainment, but it is really so much more than that. It is what you said, a child's confidence. It is, the way we invite people to consider the world differently. I think that there is a lot to what we bring to our communities. And then there's the very practical matter of we bring people down for performances and they go out to eat and they park and they stay in hotels and they do other things in the community. We are economic drivers as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So I would be remiss as we wind up here if I didn't wish you and the Palace a very happy 95th anniversary. It's, this amazing theater is not just an important part of the community, but it's also just so beautiful. And I read a note again in my research that when you opened in 1927, it was called Connecticut's most magnificent venue, which is pretty remarkable because there's some beautiful places here.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the architecture and the decor of the building?
So, as many theaters were, this particular theater was designed by the architect Thomas Lamb. I think he actually designed the second Madison Square Garden for a point of reference. And he was commissioned to do the architecture by Mary Vono. Mary Vono was a female entrepreneur here back in the early 1900s. She owned the theater that was right next to the Palace. It was the Strand. The Palace is actually situated on the site of the Opera House that was built here in, I believe, 1893 and destroyed by fire in 1904.
Wow.
And so it is, in my opinion, it is magnificent. It requires constant repair, right? You've got plaster, ornate deco, and plaster dries out over the years and things have to be repaired. But I think we've done a pretty good job over the past 20 years paying attention to the facility as much as we paid attention to the human resources and the patrons. So I don't think I'll ever get a Wurlitzer organ back here, but our roots are very important to us.
The mighty Wurlitzer, right? Amazing instrument. So I know that our time is short now. Before we go, is there anything you would say to somebody who says, I've never been down to the Palace Stamford, I go to the Palace Waterbury, or I go wherever else? Is there something you would want to say to them to encourage them to come down to Stamford?
Sometimes I have this silly cliche and I say the city, it's closer than you think, Stamford. Because in Fairfield County, when you say the city, everyone thinks of New York City. But Stamford has so much to offer, as do all of our communities. And I think that until you give it a chance, until you come down and experience the restaurant, the nightlife, the hotels, the performing arts, the movie theaters, the balloon parade, the concerts outdoors, you're kind of missing it. You started at the top by calling it another one of Connecticut's gems. Stamford is a very vibrant city. It never really had an economic downturn the way a lot of other cities in Connecticut did around 2008. And it's now the second most populous state in city in the state. So that tells you something about what's going on down here. And so please give us a chance. You won't be sorry.
Awesome. It sounds like it's the place to be.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today and spending the time with our viewers.
Thank you very much for having me. Now I'm off to lunch with my board chairman.
Enjoy. Thanks. If you'd like to know more about the Palace Stamford, visit them at palacestamford.org. I hope to see you at one of the amazing shows and performances they have coming up that Michael was just talking about. As we wrap today's conversation, just a reminder that the Bushnell depends on private support, in addition to ticket sales, to support our mission to elevate the spirit of our community. And again, we are especially grateful for the continued commitment of our sponsor, Webster Bank. It is also your support through giving, subscription, and ticket purchases that helps sustain us and is what ensured we were here and ready to welcome you back now that the time is right. I hope you'll consider renewing your gift or maybe making your first gift to the Bushnell to support that work. You can visit us at bushnell.org/donate now to give today. And as a reminder, as I always do, if you're not already part of our e-club or following us on social media, I encourage you to do so. You can sign up at bushnell.org/eclub and follow us at all the usual spaces, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I also hope you'll join us for our next episode of From the Wings, when we'll be talking to the folks at Ballet Theater Center in West Hartford about their upcoming production of the ballet Aladdin here at the Bushnell. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I hope that you'll join us for it. Until then, thank you so much. Take good care.